Of the Committee of the Whole is called to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Alderman Edwards.
Here.
Alderman Simpson.
Here.
Alderman Turner.
Here.
Alderman Lesko.
Here.
Alderman Canman.
Here.
Nice.
Alderman Jobe.
Here.
Alderman McMiniman.
Here.
Alderman Tylen.
Here.
Alderman Dove.
Here. Motion to approve the minutes of November 25.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Treasurer, do you have a treasurer's report?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The corporate fund monthly cash report for the month of November, we had a beginning balance of $9,250,472. Receipts for the month totaled $7,529,076. Disbursements for the month of November totaled $7,974,574. So our ending cash balance in the corporate fund at the end of November totaled $8,804,974.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. We have the Office of Budget and Management contract report for contracts under $100,000 that have been let and personal service contracts under $20,000 that have been executed. Any questions on the OBM contract report?
I do have a question. Probably for Director Farmer. I'm guessing it's the 11/18/2014, the TIF money going for DSI for the website. I'm just looking for a little bit further explanation.
It was a request by DSI to help promote, to improve their website and help promote the holiday walk.
Okay, so it's promotion as well, because I was going to say 10,000 to upgrade a website's pretty steep.
I think it's to put, the holiday walk information on the website, as then to promote the holiday walk.
Okay, so there is promotion and other
Yes.
things involved beyond the tech.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
If I may ask a question, Director Farmer, you know what they're doing to promote? I mean, they're doing advertising?
They ran some ads on television and radio, and, their flyers, and again, the website, and I think the radio, too.
Do you know when, there's 2 days left of the holiday walk, do you know what those days are?
I think it continues this week and next week as well. 2 weeks, I think, but just specific nights downtown, and I can't cite those dates. I've got them somewhere.
Okay, thanks.
Is there a representative from the Convention Tourism Bureau here tonight? There's a item on the bottom of our page 1, which is the Springfield Convention Center is sponsoring the Route 66 Mother Road Festival for $25,000. And the question I have for the Convention Bureau is, has the Convention Bureau received any request for financial funding from the Abraham Lincoln Funeral Reenactment Coalition? I know the coalition has received services commitments from the city, but the question is, has the Reenactment Coalition made any requests for financial cash assistance from the city? And if Joe Davis, could you coordinate that with the Convention Center? Thank you. Any other questions on the or comments regarding the Office of Budget and Management report? That being the case, we are going to the presentations. Oh, first I'll entertain a motion to accept the OBM report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. We have 2 items on the presentations agenda tonight. The first is to conduct a lottery for the membership of the Municipal Officers Electoral Board. And so at this point, Madam Clerk will take the lead on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is actually for the alternate member of the board. Mayor Houston, myself, and Alderman Edwards are the board members, but there needs to be an alternate drawn. So there are 4 aldermen eligible due to their length of service, and that would be Alderman Canman, Alderman Lesko, Alderman Simpson, and Alderman Tylen. Alderman Dove is not eligible due to a break in service a couple of years ago. So there are 4 quarters in this hat. They're numbered 1 through 4. Their names have been alphabetized and numbered, so I will withdraw that number now. Number 2, Alderman Lesko will be the alternate member of the MOED.
And Madam Clerk, the purpose of this board is to hear objections to
That's
the
correct.
petitions that have been filed to run for
Our
office.
initial meeting of the board is tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. here in the chamber.
And we've heard objections to one candidate in Ward 5, is that correct? And we've heard an objection to a candidate running for treasurer, is that correct?
There are 2 objections in Ward 5 and 1 in the treasurer's race, yes.
Thank you.
So what's the timeline for, I know you guys meet
10 a.m. tomorrow morning, and Mr. Greenberg will be there to work out a timetable with those attorneys, if any, involved with the objectors, and there'll be hearings scheduled in all 3 cases.
Okay, so the hearing won't be Wednesday. The Wednesday meeting is just to determine.
Well, we don't know until the meeting starts. What we have to do by statute is to adopt rules of procedure, and we've given notice to everybody except for the Alderman Lesko, who was just now appointed, but we've given notice to all of the other parties by both certified mail and by personal service from the Sangamon County Sheriff's deputies. So we'll be here tomorrow, 10 a.m., and besides the adoption of rules, it will be an entry of appearance by those who show up. It'll be a matter of motion of whether either the objector or the candidate asks for more time, and we will go from there.
Okay. I was just curious.
The next item is I'll ask Alderman Jobe to introduce our guest to make a presentation on the subject.
All right, great. First off, Alderman Lesko and I were asked to attend a presentation from Amoresco, and I know that all aldermen were invited to those presentations. I know our schedules are a little crazy and hectic at times, so we asked the company to come and give us an update of a status of a project that they're working on in terms of the city and another project that they're working on at the county level. I asked them to be brief within 10 minutes, and I know all of you have a presentation packet in front of you with what they'll be speaking on this evening, so if they would come forward and introduce themselves, and I'll let them have the floor. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Gene Mackey. I work for Amoresco. We're a performance contracting company. I've been with Amoresco for 13 years, developing energy savings performance contracts for various units of local government, not unlike the city of Springfield. As previously mentioned, one of our most successful projects was completed at the county complex, not a block or so from where we stand, and that project was built. I believe the construction costs were right around $4.5 million, and the county is saving over $250,000 a year in energy expense as a result of that project. Attached to the back of your packets is a letter of reference written by the executive director sharing some of his thoughts and perspectives on the success of the project. But what we want to talk about tonight is the opportunities that exist here in some of the city properties. Now, to give you a little context, Amoresco initially engaged with the city back in 2009, and that was part of an open solicitation by the city to identify and develop projects with a performance contracting company, a company that will come in and provide design, build, construction services on projects and then guarantee the performance of those projects over a contracted term, usually 10, 15, or 20 years. So in 2009, there were 5 bidders that submitted proposals. There were extensive interviews, research done, and Amoresco was selected the performance contracting company of choice. Subsequent to that, our company executed 2 contracts with the city of Springfield. One was for the development and submission of an audit agreement on 4 key properties, those being Firehouse Number 1, Community East, Community West, and the Lincoln Library. And we completed that assignment, fulfilled that contract obligation. And at that time, in 2010, as some of you may recall, there was an emergency cooling situation, kind of hard to think about now when it's 30 degrees outside, but it was 100 degrees then, and the air conditioning went out in this building. And so the city contacted us, said, how can you help us? And Ameresco deployed resources and installed a temporary chiller on the building to get the cooling back up and running. We did this very quickly and did this in a negotiated fashion with the city. So we were able to deliver those services. And after, I believe it was a period of 5 months or so, we decommissioned that unit, and a new unit was permanently installed in its place. So moving forward from there, we continued to refine our findings and strategies related to those 4 properties. And tonight what we'd like to talk about is perhaps the centerpiece of those 4 being the Muni East project. And I'd like to simply walk through this very briefly with you. It's a very high-level summary of the work. On page 2, it indicates the scope of work, the basic energy efficiency measures. They're related to HVAC. This is pumps and equipment, things of that nature. All of these designs have been approved previously by city staff. They've reviewed them and certified them as being valid. The savings calculations related to these improvements, meaning the savings that these improvements will generate, have been validated independently by CWLP representatives. And the installation would occur with minimal disruption to building operations. And perhaps most importantly, all of the subcontractors on the project would be local Springfield companies. I might add that that was a very important point in our county contract negotiations, that all of the contractors be local to the county. So when you think about an energy savings contract, you think about what are the inputs, what is the baseline, how do you create that, how do you identify and prove energy savings? And we look at 2 main factors. We look at the cost of energy, the current usage, and a rate of increase relative to that cost of energy over time. And then when you think about the cost of money, we look at interest rates. So there's 2 graphics there identifying an average energy increase cost over the last 20 years of 4.6%, and the average GO bond rate, general obligation bond rate on a 20-year term, 4.25. Of course, we all know that you can get money a lot cheaper than that, than the average. That rate's going down. So on page 4, what we've done is we've amortized the energy savings over a 20-year term, and likewise matched a payment schedule of debt service to calibrate with those energy savings escalating over time. And as you can see, the energy savings indicated in the red line is above the cost of the debt service, which is indicated in the blue line over time. So net of the term, although the total savings compounded is $2.3 million, and the total cost compounded is 1.9, the city comes out ahead almost $500,000 over the term. That's a very compelling argument where we come from. Oftentimes, because of the low cost of energy in general terms, as I'm sure you're all aware, it's very difficult to find projects that will self-fund on energy savings only. This is I don't want to say it's a rare occurrence, but it is certainly an interesting opportunity for the city to actually do something that is going to fund itself. One recommendation might be the use of alternate revenue bonds, where the city can issue new debt and pledge the resultant energy savings to service that debt over time. In summary, these are critical improvements. These are improvements that are necessary and needed. These are improvements that city staff has validated. These are things that continue to be band-aided and put together with, as we say, baling wire and bubble gum. And replacing these pieces of equipment with new equipment will definitely reduce costs beyond just the energy savings. The energy savings, again, as I've indicated, exceed the total project cost. It's truly a self-funding project. And you would receive a guarantee of quality, cost, and performance from Ameresco contractually. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Yes.
Alderman Cameron.
Thank you. The energy we would be saving, would that be electricity?
Yes, electricity primarily.
So
but we would calculate natural gas usage and water savings as well.
From this project at Municipal Building East, there would be natural gas and savings as well as electricity and water, you're saying?
I don't have the technical data to that level of specificity in front of me, but I know that when we do our calculations, we would look at all three of those main utility streams, if you would. I believe that in this case, though, the primary saver is the electricity.
Well, how does the fact that we have our own electric generating plant and the city generates its own electricity, how does that impact on the savings that we would incur as compared to if we were a city that didn't have our own electric generating plant?
That's an interesting point. The city buys electricity at a very good price, but indeed the city is still a customer of CWLP. You don't get it for free. So that's why we felt it was really important to validate these findings with CWLP independently and with city representatives to make sure everyone was on the same page related to the math.
So the price you used to calculate the savings, the energy savings, was the actual price that the city taxpayers pay for the use of electricity, or what's projected to be paid in the future?
Yes, sir. To develop the baseline energy usage, we use the actual utility bills that the city has been paying over the last, I believe it was a 3-year run, to come up with our primary baseline.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Well, I might have one other. So the projects you said previously you did for the city in these fire stations and at the library, is that correct?
Excuse me, we didn't implement projects there, we developed projects. This $1.4 million Muni East project is part of a larger $14.5 million project that we developed and budgeted and presented to the city. As things go, these projects were presented and discussions are ongoing related to decisions to implement.
So just recently, I mean, in 2009, I think you said you did the fire stations and the library, but those audits were never implemented?
That's correct. In 2010, yes, that's correct.
Or 2010, but now you just did this Municipal Building East, and you did other city properties in addition to that?
No, the only actual work we've done for the city is the installation of the temporary cooling in 2010 and the development of the audit document that included all these specification costs and savings calculations.
But the audit you did was just for Municipal Building East, or did you do it on other city properties?
It was for the 4 buildings, East, West, Firehouse Number 1, and the library, the Lincoln Library.
Okay, then you did all this in 2010?
Yes.
Okay, not just recently. So would these need to be? So these savings that you put in here, though, this is just the savings from implementing the audit at Municipal Building East, not at the other buildings. Is that
right.
correct?
And that's a great question. To move forward on this project, one of the first things we would want to do is finalize and revisit all these numbers, test our assumptions from 2010 to make sure that they're still valid, and again, receive confirmation independently from CWLP and city staff to make sure that we're still all on the same page.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yes,
Two brief comments. I think the one point you made, Alderman Cameron, is that savings to the city is lost revenue to city water, light, and power when it comes to electricity. So that's something that needs to be understood. And then another comment is I believe the library is currently having a major heating and air conditioning upgrade, which will affect the extent of savings potentially. Alderman Edwards?
Yeah, I enjoy your presentation, but usually the way that works is we have the staff come and tell us they're looking at doing this, and then they give us information on what they're thinking about doing, and then they have you give a presentation. I think this is kind of the first I've heard really of this, so I think we would probably lean, and I'm not directing my comments to you, I'm directing it to the chairman. I would think that we need to ask staff, what are we looking at, what's the scope of the projects, what are we looking at bidding, how do we set out the purchase, rather than somebody stand in front of us and give a presentation and tell us what they're doing. I mean,
Alderman Joe, do you wish to comment?
I would like to comment on that, Alderman Edwards. The company has met with Director McCarty and the mayor's office. This project was obviously under a different administration. Obviously, there's a cost to this. They wanted us to engage in the council. That's why we asked all the aldermen to attend a presentation a couple of months ago, and only Alderman Lesko and I could attend. That's why we wanted to bring them here tonight in full in front of the committee of the whole to let you know where the company stands today and to see if there's interest in moving this forward at all from a council perspective before they begin to engage back with the administration.
Yeah, usually I think that during budget presentation, we could have been talking about this is going to be in the budget, this is going to be in the capital development, this is going to be in maintenance, this is going to be whatever. Like I say, I appreciate the presentation. It's just, I thought we were ahead of what we were doing, and I would have just felt more comfortable having the staff stand up in front of us and go, look, this is what we need to do, we're going to float bonds, this is where we're going, as opposed to a contractor standing up going, hey, look, this is how you can do this. It's like, so I was just, it's not against you, I enjoyed your presentation, and just...
Well, it's a very unique opportunity for the city, if I may elaborate briefly. Because Ameresco has already been competitively bid and selected, and that the city is in fact already contracted twice with us as a provider of these services, the speed in which the city can implement is much quicker than what you might find in your traditional procurement model, where you identify what work you want to go after, you put those specs out to bid, they come back, there's analysis, there's delays, there's changes. At this point, I guess the timing was bad in the selection and procurement and implementation of Ameresco's work for the city because of a lot of the other political machinations going on in the background at that time. But that being said, we still stand at the ready as a vehicle to move forward. I know that Ron Drennan is perhaps one of the only ones left of the original team from back in '09 that's still on staff, and he's a strong advocate of these programs. He would like to do all of the work if it was financially feasible, but certainly this Muni East project on a self-funding basis is a very intuitive project to move forward with.
Well, let me just ask a question here. We bid you out as a consultant, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll still have to have the presentation and the bid to do the work.
Yes.
You're not saying, in a nutshell, that we don't have to go through the RFP, we don't have to do anything because we let you have the consulting contract and now you're telling us this is the way we do it. You're not saying that to me.
No. If indeed the city's intent is to move forward and take the next step, that next step would be to indeed rebid all of the parts and pieces of this. We would manage that as your consultant. We would have those discussions and meetings with city staff, and then presumably come to you at a future date and present those findings and recommendations for consideration.
Okay. That makes sense now. I got it. I just thought, I heard you say, you know what, we're here. Now this is going to be a lot more streamlined than doing the RFPs. Well, now we're back onto the course where we do need to do some RFPs. We need to see what's out there. With your consultation, I get that part. But we're a long ways from, I would think, from reaching out there and doing this without doing our RFPs and seeing. Now, let me ask you this since you're up there. Do you write the RFPs? Help us write the RFPs? How do you, when you say we're ready to go one step forward, what does that mean?
Well, another great question. The way that Ameresco approaches the market, we do all of that development at risk at no cost to the city. So we would be very much involved in the development of the specifications, the procurement, the identification of all of the different team members and all the different trades. And we would do all of that development at no cost to the city as well. So your development costs on the front side are zero.
Right, but we still have to go through our RFP process of bids. You can't just say, okay, this is specifications, you help us write the spec manuals, then we go out for RFP.
Because you've already competitively selected a performance contracting company, the way the state legislation is written, the way that the way that the legislation empowers you is to allow the performance contractor to negotiate with all of those subcontracted services. So it wouldn't be a pure spec bid process, as perhaps you may be familiar with. It would be more of a negotiated procurement with all of the trade partners that you prefer.
You know,
Again,
not being uncomfortable here, but I am uncomfortable. I would much rather prefer to hear that from staff than to hear it from an outside contractor.
I completely understand.
Yeah.
Which is and again, I know a few of you a little bit. There are a lot of you that I don't know at all, but that's one of the reasons why I wanted to include Brian McFadden's comments in his letter of reference in the back page of this presentation. I think that his opinion perhaps would speak much more loudly than I ever could and be much more persuasive than I ever could to someone like yourself, because he is a peer and he has gone through this process, and as a result he's extremely satisfied with the work that he received and the performance.
So it appears the next step would be either an ordinance sponsored by facility management folks, Mr. McCarty, or an alderman could take the lead on this. So if there's nothing more, we'll move on to the next portion of the agenda. Thank you very much, Mr. Mackey.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item 7 is ordinances tabled or remaining in committee. They are 2012-123, 2013-174, 2013-376, 2013-397, 2014-085, 2014-293, 2014-438. Are there any requests to pull a ordinance for committee review tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move 2014-438.
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Joe. That's the ordinance having to do with a Inspector IG position. So we'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is ordinances for committee consideration. And so the first ordinance will be the one just pulled, Madam Chair, or Madam Clerk.
2014-438 is an ordinance amending Chapter 32 of the 1988 City of Springfield Code of Ordinances as amended, pertaining to the appointment and duties of an Inspector General.
Move for consent.
Second.
Okay.
There's a motion for consent and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, please.
Alderman
Jobe, if you or Alderman Turner could just give us a brief synopsis. You know, I read this a few times, but I'd kind of like to hear what you had in mind when it was done.
Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. That's in the. It's broken out, very detailed in terms of the rewrite of the current ordinance that spells out an Inspector General. Let's backtrack a minute here. I want to just briefly explain how we got to this situation. Last budget season, the City Council approved funds to hire an outside consultant, that was Hillard Heinz, to finally decide if this city needed a position that was independent and had authority to investigate and bring to final conclusion any wrongdoings or mishappenings within city government. Hillard Heinz is in their second phase of their three-phase contract. First phase was interviews, interviewed staff, union leaders, elected officials. Many of us in this room were interviewed or had the opportunity to be interviewed. Out of that, 93% agreed that we needed this type of position, and roughly 76% of those felt that it needed to be in some sort of part-time or contractual form, that we're not certain that we would need a full-time Inspector General. The second phase was the rewriting of city code that would give this office some authority and to be as independent as possible. So we met with, the consultants proposed the rewrite. We then met with city legal because we wanted to make sure that we weren't violating the consent decree that was passed in the 80s, and that's what's before you tonight. Now we've talked this issue for a long time. a long, long time. I think Mayor Karen Becerra put this idea in place in city code when she was mayor. And we've discussed this. We've all argued and complained that we need more of an independent voice at City Hall. We all campaign on it. We all talk about it. And so for all these years, and many of us around this horseshoe have campaigned on it, talked about it being open, transparent government. Well, this is how open, transparent government unfolds. And this is the next step in this process. We can't begin to realize the scope until we be able to create an independent voice, such as this Inspector General. And so this is the second phase of the contract tonight, which I think is a much needed one, because we can't go forward without amending city code that addresses the Inspector General position. So that's what we're here tonight.
Alderman Turner, do you wish to add comments?
No, I think that Alderman Joe covered it quite well. I think that it is important to reiterate that this has been a process, and it's not something that any of us, went headstrong into it. It was very well thought out. We've taken incremental steps to get where we are tonight, and we've taken a lot of care to keep everybody informed as we went along the way in the process, so none of this comes as a surprise to anybody. And I appreciate the support that we have gotten as we have moved forward to this place. Corporation Council Greenberg has been a tremendous help. Council Coordinator has been a tremendous help, and so I think that we're at a good place to move forward.
And now I have some just
And I'm not being on our Corporation Council answer,
Right.
legal, technical question.
Just so that I'm making sure that my interpretation of the legal wording is correct, when it's stating in here, such as the mayor must initiate the search, and then it goes on to say that the mayor will appoint, I'm trying to find the exact language here real quick, with the advice and consent of the city council, will appoint either an interim or the acting. Now, does that mean that it has to come forward in ordinance form and be voted on?
Well, not necessarily in ordinance form, but it does need to be brought before the city council for the consent of the city council to the action that the mayor is proposing.
Now, to kind of finish my thought process, if Mayor X brings forward a candidate, and the sitting city council votes against that person, it fails. 2/3 majority says, no, we don't want this person. Does that then, like some of the other director positions within the city, allow the mayor to put that person in an acting capacity indefinitely, or for the term?
I will have to think about that. I don't think anybody can. My first impression is that nobody can exercise the powers of the office until there has been a nomination that has been confirmed by the full, or by a majority vote, 2/3 vote of the city council.
Right, and that's the one thing which I was wanting to be sure of. The one gray area that I felt in this was whether or not, if there was not an approval, not a consent from the city council, did that then default to an acting capacity? And I didn't see anything in here, yes or no. And I was a little worried about that, because I think the whole intent here is that we want someone that both the council and the mayor is comfortable with in that position.
And probably the best way to do that, and it's something that we can think about in the next week, is how to do that. Now, for instance, and the reason I'm thinking of this is I had to look at the statute rather quickly, is the procedure for filling a vacancy for the position of alderman is, the mayor nominates someone, the council either confirms it or turns it down, and then within a month, the mayor is required to tender a new candidate, which the council either approves or they can turn it down. And if there are 3 times, then the third time, if the mayor's nomination fills the vacancy of alderman without a vote by the council. Now, that's one model to do it. The other model is to explicitly say that if the nomination fails, that a person will exercise the powers of acting inspector general until there is a nomination. But you're correct. Right now, the ordinance is silent.
Okay. And Alderman Jobe, I apologize for not getting that to you earlier today. It was just something that I found when I reread it again today on my lunch hour, and I was unable to have the time to email you.
Sure. No, we can, well,
Would the language in section D on page 4 cover that instance?
What section?
B on page 4.
Section D on page 4.
The vacancy section?
Pardon me?
The vacancy section?
Okay, it's section 32.72, and then you have to go a couple of pages, but yeah, that one says that in the case of
Yeah,
a
right here.
vacancy in the position of Inspector General, the mayor, with the advice and consent of the city council, may appoint an interim Inspector General for a period not to exceed 60 days with a majority vote.
But once again, that brings me to my question of when it says...
there can't be a vacancy.
Correct.
But it brings me to the point of when it says advice and consent, what does that mean?
It means that the mayor, we tried to track the idea of the Appointments Clause of the U.S. Constitution. The president brings forward a nomination, but the person does not serve, for instance, in the Supreme Court until confirmed by the Senate.
Right. Okay. Well, I personally think that you guys did a lot of work on this, and it's a lot of good work. I think this is something that going forward I'm definitely interested in. I think that we've set a good boundary and some good foundation here. If we could just look into that one area, that was my only real concern.
Are you comfortable with us?
Alderman Turner?
I'm sorry. Are you comfortable with us working with Corporation Council over the course of the week and then having something as an amendment on Tuesday prior to...
Oh, I absolutely expected that. You guys don't sit on your hands. You get going.
Okay.
Alderman Simpson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Was there any discussion or even consideration with regard to public input in terms of the Ethics Committee itself?
Remember the mayor and...
I think the Ethics Committee pretty much stayed as is, and for people who might be following at home, again, this is section 32.72, subsection A. The Ethics Board right now in the draft is that the Ethics Board will be 5 members of the City Council, and for a 2-year period it'll be the members of the odd-numbered wards, and then in 2 years it'll be the members of the even-numbered wards.
That's not my question.
No, you're asking if we thought of bringing a general public, member of the public, onto the Ethics Committee.
And I guess the short answer is I don't recall any discussion of that.
Why not?
Just because there was no discussion of that. This was the draft that I believe was basically used, tendered on a first draft, and it didn't get changed.
I think it might be a good idea.
All right.
Speaking of the odd versus even numbered years in the membership of this Ethics Committee, if we would pass this ordinance and if the contractor became the IG immediately, evidently, then who would be the most immediate members of the Ethics Committee from the council?
We would need to have something in the ordinance that adopts this ordinance to say how that starts, an implementing clause.
So we would need that in this ordinance, is what you're...
Correct.
Need what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Councilman.
The question is, the Ethics Committee will alternate between odd-numbered aldermen and the even-numbered ward aldermen, and the question is, if this immediately became effective, would we have this then the...
Who would start first?
Who would start first, that's right.
Sure.
Yeah, the way the ordinance is phrased, the change is made on May 1st of every odd-numbered year. So there would be a change on May 1st of 2015, and the question would be, which group of aldermen starts it? Would it be the alderman for the odd-numbered wards who would then only serve for, essentially for about 5 months, and they switch over, or would there be a change? And do you select the first group of aldermen by, tossing a coin or otherwise, and then have that group just serving 2 years and 4 months, for instance?
I mean, we could,
So you're thinking of proposing an amendment to deal with that situation?
So that'd be a possible amendment number 2. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't know if we need an amendment on that because we could argue back and forth, should it be 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9, or 2, 4, 6, 8, 10? I mean, we could argue back and forth who should go first. I mean, we made the suggestion in the ordinance to start with the odd-numbered wards, and then the even number. I mean, you could slice and dice this thing up 100 ways. I mean,
I don't think it really matters as long as it's clear.
Well,
so that's one problem.
Well, it's pretty clear right there, Alderman Kim. It says the 5 members of the City Council will be represented by wards 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, and then wards 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 on alternating 2-year cycles. But if you want it more clear,
but the problem Corporation Council pointed out is when this thing first gets implemented, who do you start with? So,
when Alderman Jobe can chime in on this, but it was my understanding, the way that the ordinance was written, that it's pretty clear to me that it would start 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. The way that, that was the intent, and it appears to be that's the way it's written.
what section is that we're talking about?
Did you just make a motion? Because I'll just second it.
Yeah, page 3,
For
section A.
an, for an amendment,
This is no page number.
and we'll just move on.
Section 32.72, subsection A.
It says the 5 members of the City Council will be represented by wards 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and wards 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 on an alternating 2-year cycle, said cycle commencing every odd number year on May 1st. So the intent and the way that the ordinance is written is that it would begin 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and then alternate to the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10.
But it also says commencing May 1st, so the question is, are we looking backwards as if this has already commenced May 1st to bring in the odds, or do we wait for the next May 1st, which is next year in 2015? So there's still some ambiguity to it.
we'll propose.
Okay.
We'll propose a cleanup to be more specific. Alderman Cameron.
Okay. Let's go to Alderman Cameron, then we're back to Alderman Tyler.
Is the Corporation Council, the way this is written now, Alderman Tyler talked about the mayor's appointment of the Inspector General having to be approved by a 2/3 vote of the council. Is that the case, or is it just a majority vote of the council?
I just was making an example.
Oh, okay.
I think it's just majority.
Yeah, I believe, that's correct. I don't recall anything about 2/3 majority on the appointment.
Yeah, I was looking at the page that refers to 2/3 majority on a different kind of vote.
Okay, and then I have a question of either, Corporation Council or the sponsors. In section 32.72, and then large F, where it says that qualified candidates for Inspector General shall be a person or contracted entity with, and then it lists the certain things like at least 5 years of experience as either an Inspector General or as a federal or state judge, as a licensed attorney, and so on. I'm trying to figure out how a contracted entity could be. A person can have this experience, but a contracted entity, I don't understand how a contracted entity could be a federal or state judge or, an Inspector General, a local.
Well, entities can be persons, too. I think the distinction is whether they are a full-time employee or whether they are a person who the city contracts with to provide this service.
But it seems that the intent of this language seems to be that a firm like Hillard Hines or some other firm could be the contracted entity, and that entity of whatever it is, the ABC company, wouldn't have a degree in anything, or it's just an entity. So if it's a corporation.
Alderman Jobe?
I think, Alderman Cameron, I think your question's valid. Where we got the basis for a lot of the qualification was from our consultant, but they were following national standards set forth by the Association of Inspector Generals.
Well, I'm just thinking maybe we should change that to just say it shall be a person
But we don't.
instead of a contracted entity.
And I guess my argument to that would be, we won't know the demand of such office of Inspector General until we pass this type of ordinance to see if this would be a full-time person, a part-time outside contracting firm that would be responsible for administering those sorts
Well,
of things.
maybe it should say be a person or a contracted entity, and if a contracted entity, it shall have people in the firm that have these qualifications, rather, because an entity, a corporation, can't have.
I would leave that to our
All
corporation
right,
counsel.
it is something that we will look at.
Okay.
The other thing, who initially drafted this ordinance?
Our consultants, Hillard Hines.
Hillard Hines? Okay. The other I've got
It was a part of their contract that we all approved.
Okay. Just a question for Corporation Counsel. When we, anything we do with the City Council is by majority. Is it correct that anything we do with the City Council is by majority vote? If there's an extraordinary majority vote required, that's due to a state law that requires that. Is that
Well,
correct?
the city council can have its own internal rules requiring extra majority votes, and there's several places in our own rules of procedure that require a two-thirds vote. So, that can be done, and until the rule is changed, then the extra majority is the rule.
What rule do we have now that requires a two-thirds vote?
Well, I can look it up. There are several, though. That by your own internal rules of procedure, you've required a two-thirds vote. And for instance, some of Robert's Rules of Order, for that matter, do it. For points of order on section
Okay,
Rule
I see that, yeah.
4.4, you require a decision of the presiding officer be sustained, and it's sustained unless two-thirds majority of the council members then holding office vote in favor of the appeal. And there's several other examples like that.
Okay. Well, what would happen if I'm talking about now section 32.73A and then subsection B within that, where it says, following a public hearing, the office of Inspector General may be abolished by a two-thirds supermajority vote of the entire membership of the council. What if a future city council decided they wanted to, we pass this, and then a future city council decides that they want to just, by a majority vote, eliminate the office of Inspector General? Would that,
They would be able
by
to
a
do so.
majority vote, would that vote be effective?
Yes. That situation came up in Chicago when Mayor Washington's administration wished to change some rules that had been put into effect by the immediately preceding City Council. They changed them by majority vote, even though the rule that was involved said that rules had to be changed by a two-thirds majority vote. And I believe it went all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no, that's valid. A future City Council can change by a simple majority what a previous City Council ruled could only be changed by a supermajority.
So it could amend this provision, change it from two-thirds to majority.
Correct.
But could it also just simply pass an ordinance saying we're repealing this whole thing and eliminating the office of Inspector General and pass that by a simple majority without amending this?
Possibly. I'd have to look into that and see whether it takes one vote or two votes.
Okay, but so basically this is kind of conveying to people that a future city council couldn't change it by, unless there was a supermajority, but in fact the future city council could change this by a simple majority.
Eventually, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Alderman Tyler?
Following up on the line of questioning that Alderman Cannon started about the contractual, if the Inspector General ended up being contractual instead of being a person, how would that affect the appointment process? Would that then make it, is there a provision in here which I missed about contractual services versus appointment?
Well, it would still require, almost certainly because of the dollar amount of the contract, it would require approval by the City Council.
Right, but would it affect, how would it affect in the case of the consent? If if a contract was what the mayor wanted to go with, and the contract was not approved under city council
Well, the mayor has no authority to enter into a contract.
without city council
Correct,
approval. Okay.
correct.
Well, like I said, it was just one of those gray areas that kind of came up while Alderman Cameron was talking.
Can I respond on? So Alderman
Joe.
Cameron, are you concerned about the higher vote requirement to disband the Office of Inspector General? I mean, I guess my argument to that be, we've had the Office of Inspector General in City Code for nearly 20 years, and it's never been brought to anybody's attention to disband it. I guess if Alderman, I think the real discussion will take place during the budget season of how we're going to pay for this, because by that time, our interim, Hillard Hines, will run out, and we'll either then say, put this in full motion, or put the, we love to beat a dead horse here in the city, or put the dead horse to bed finally. But we've had this position for 20 years, and nobody's ever brought the idea of disbanding the Office of Inspector General. Aldermen could just band together and not fund it.
Well, that's true. I think I applaud the efforts of you and
Sure.
Alderman Turner and
I'm just
trying
pointing
to
out.
get this thing established. We've had the office in the city code all these 20 years or a long time, and it's only been filled for a short period when it was first created. My point is, I think I don't like this. I like the concept, but I don't like the 2/3 language that I referenced, because it really doesn't do anything. It maybe makes people think that we can't change it. A future council can't change it except by a 2/3 vote, but it actually can be changed by a majority vote. So that's why I think I would suggest taking it out of there.
Okay.
And just,
all right.
But
We'll take that
the other
suggestion.
thing is, I was wondering, does anyone have any idea what the fiscal impact of this is going to be?
Well, there's no fiscal impact to this ordinance. We're just updating city code.
Okay, so the fiscal impact comes if the mayor actually appoints somebody and we hire somebody, so or contract with them firm.
Correct.
I was wondering, since there apparently are going to be some amendments, whether the maker or somebody moved to put it on consent, whether the maker of that motion might change their motion to debate, since...
Well, I made the motion for consent, and I'm more than happy to move it to the debate, because we will have I think this is a very healthy discussion, Chairman. I think we'll have some amendments, which a major change in city code would probably have some amendments. So I will draw my motion for consent and make a motion for the debate.
Second. Okay. Further discussion on the...
The question that I raised with regard to having a member of the public for transparency, for inclusion, would that have to be by amendment, or would you just fix it?
It would have to be by amendment, because the ordinance does not talk about having a member of the public. And then I guess there's we would have to have some sort of a procedure on how that person is selected.
Or qualified.
Also, Chairman, you might want to, right now the committee is a 5-person committee. Sometimes if you have an even-numbered committee,
It's
that could be
six,
a
mayor and
one
5.
Pardon?
It's mayor plus 5.
Oh, so it's 6 now? Well, that might be a good thing. You add a person and you have an odd number.
Well, that's not the argument you were starting.
Pardon?
You were starting to say it's about odd, and never mind.
Getting back to the fiscal note issue, the ordinance has language that, quote, "The Office of Inspector General shall be funded by an annual appropriation by the mayor and the city council in an amount sufficient to cover its operations." And I just wonder how that'll play out in practice. In Chicago, there's a inspector general that covers the aldermen, and he wanted to have more staff and so forth, and he literally sued the city council for more funding. And so this language here could, be a problem, where we shall be funded by an annual appropriation by the mayor and the city council. So does that give a right to the inspector general to almost define his own budget?
A court will not order that, because in order to do that, you're asking for a mandamus, and the Illinois law is very clear that You cannot sue a public official for something that inherently requires the exercise of discretion and have a court do that. A court will issue mandamus against a public official or a public body when it is a strictly ministerial issue where there is no judgment involved. So, my prediction is the Inspector General for the Aldermen in the City of Chicago will lose that lawsuit because under Illinois law, it's a discretionary matter.
Okay. Any further discussion? Back to the fiscal note issue, because this is something that Alderman Turner put into our rules of practice. It says that any proposed ordinance or resolution shall be accompanied by a fact sheet that shall include a summary of the proposed ordinance or resolution. And then it goes on to say, and a fiscal impact of the proposed ordinance or resolution. I understand what Alderman Jobe is saying. This is self-funding to an extent already because the contractor, Hillard Hines, has already received or has potentially enough money under contract to then perform the duties of IG, and we've already approved those monies. But I think in the spirit of what Alderman Turner offered a year ago, I think we really need a fiscal note for what a 12-month period of funding would look like. Because if we pass this, we really are obligating ourselves to then fund the...
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt you, we're not...
I'll let you respond, but the portion of the ordinance I just read states that the Office of Inspector General shall be funded by an annual appropriation by the Mayor and the City Council in an amount sufficient to cover its operations. So what we're saying here is if we pass this, then we are obligating ourselves to fund this in our next budget year. And so I think we really need a fiscal impact for that reason. So please respond.
Is that already
Change it to May.
code?
Yeah, we'll change it to May. That'll solve that problem.
Change what to May?
Just change that language from shall to may.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Fair
So that's
enough.
another possible amendment? Okay.
Sure.
All right. Any further discussions?
Yep.
Jeez.
Chairman,
Alderman Cameron?
Known something
if I might, on that rule you referenced, Rule 6.18, it also says that, the prior to consideration of the committee of the whole, each proposed ordinance or resolution shall be accompanied by a fact sheet. That includes a summary of the proposed ordinance, and it says what's supposed to be included in there. And it says that the fact sheet shall be executed by the sponsor of the proposed ordinance or resolution or the city council coordinator if the sponsor is an alderman. Now, so I was wondering if perhaps...
I will have a fact sheet. I'll have a
No.
fact sheet next Tuesday night when we can discuss this outside of debate agenda. My oversight, it will never happen
No,
again.
it's no problem. It's not your oversight, really.
No, it is my oversight. I'm the sponsor. of the
Actually,
Alderman.
historically, when we make code changes, there's never been.
Well, the rule says the council coordinator, so I was going to ask if Joe Davis could...
I'm not the legally of this body. Mr. Greenberg is. I don't feel like I am capable of making decisions when it comes to...
It's a mistake. So
Comes
we
to
will.
Alderman.
I'm owning up to the mistake. I didn't have the fact sheet with this very detailed ordinance that's taken us months to get to this point. So I will have the fact sheet. We will adhere to the rules of this body on Tuesday night.
It's not a problem. I just, the rule does say, though, the fact sheet shall be executed by the...
I think the point's been
That
made.
if the sponsor is an alderman, it shall be executed by the city council coordinator, so...
You got a problem with all of a sudden,
Whoever
Sam?
Let's go one at a time. Let's be recognized. But I think the point's been made and accepted, Alderman Cameron. So I think you've made a point and it's been
All right,
accepted.
thanks.
Alderman Edwards?
Alderman Joe.
I just want to make sure every time from here on that we change the code or amend the code for any reason, all these rules that you two are spouting out are to remain consistent. So if somebody takes a heretofore out and adds to a whatever, I want a financial sheet. Now, as I understand this is no financial impact whatsoever.
None.
This is changing the code, period. You may or may not fund this. We'll discuss that during the budget process. But from here on, from what I'm hearing out of you two, every time somebody changes something in the code, we'll do a financial statement. We'll do a financial impact statement to be fair across the board. That means one of you guys puts out an amendment, because Sam, you do floor amendments a lot. You do a floor amendment, I expect you to do a financial statement. A financial impact on that amendment. There's not going to be an exception because I'm going to hold this group entirely to it. So these floor amendments that you want to throw out all the time, I'm going to ask you, do you have a financial impact? And you better have one.
Well, let's. I'm going to take that. I'm going to answer this. Number one, I think we have an obligation to know how much things cost, and the reason.
We'll discuss that during the budget. That's not here.
I think you missed the part of the discussion tonight, Alderman Edwards, where we had the word "shall" in the ordinance, and Alderman Job has just said we've gone from "we shall fund this" to "we may fund this," and that's what's taken this fiscal note potentially out of the picture. So Alderman Job accepted a friendly amendment, and so that's why we don't have to argue about the fiscal note at this point.
He kept arguing.
Well, I think
that's the point.
No, I think
he didn't stop. He kept it going.
No, the point was, Alderman, that what the rule said. The rule says what the rule says, and it says if the alderman if an alderman sponsors it, then the city council.
That's what I just said. So from now on, when you do a floor amendment,
wait to be recognized. Everybody, wait to be recognized. Alderman Cameron, you go first, and then Alderman Edwards can go next.
And the rule doesn't say that for every amendment. It's just for a proposed ordinance or resolution that the fact sheet has to be prepared, and the physical note is to be prepared by the Office of Budget and Management. And if there is no physical impact, then they just say there's no physical impact. It's pretty simple. The reason we adopted this change in the rule was, remember when we were going to change the tow ordinance and reduce the fee from $500 to $250 for the first offense, and we didn't get in advance. All of a sudden, at the last minute, we got a report from Director McCarty as to what the physical impact was. We didn't get it in advance, so we put this change in so that we would get this information in advance, not at the last minute, or maybe not at all. And I think it's prudent for the City Council to have this information before we act.
Alderman Tyler?
Actually, you said Edwards.
Well,
go first.
I tried to recognize Alderman Edwards. I wasn't sure if you wanted to go.
I'll wait.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, okay, Sam, I'm going to go with your argument. But you change a lot on the fly that has financial impact on ordinances written by aldermen. You tend to want to change them a lot. And when there's a financial impact, if the aldermen are going to have to start doing this, then any amendment you put on an ordinance that has a financial impact statement with it, you're going to have a financial impact statement with it when you go to amend that ordinance. That's only fair because the alderman has went to the time to do it based on the ordinance that he wrote. You change that ordinance to a floor amendment, you should be held to the same guidelines that this is the financial impact that my amendment has on this ordinance. That's only fair.
Chairman. Alderman Tyler and then Alderman Cameron.
I think the point that was trying to be made by both Alderman Edwards and Alderman Turner is that past practice on code changes has been set. And I think past practice has been set on past practice of this body has been set repeatedly. And Corporation Counsel has brought up that past practice can be adopted and used. And we have already, historically, never required a financial impact statement for changing the code in this manner. And I think that Alderman McMenamin brought up a good point about the legalese of what the word "shall" means, and Alderman Job responded appropriately by saying the "may" he'll put an amendment in for "may." I think this is one of those cases where I don't remember which alderman brought it up. It may have been Job. I think we're not just beating the dead horse. I think somebody started kicking it too.
Alderman Chairman. I think we have discussed it a great deal. Go ahead, Alderman Turner.
As one of the co-sponsors of the ordinance, I think, let me just wrap this up, because we could go on forever and a day. Alderman, the ordinance is out there. It's on the debate agenda. Alderman Job and I have already said that we'll come back with not one, not two, but 3 cleanup amendments next Tuesday, which should satisfy all the concerns of everybody and I expect that this will fly out of here 10-0 because we've argued it, and we're going to incorporate everybody's suggestions, so nobody has any reason to not agree with everything that's there. So I'm expecting a 10-0 vote, so I'm calling the question. Let's move it on.
Second. I'll second that call to question.
Thank you.
So there's a motion.
All those in favor?
I'm still chair, Alderman Turner.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so there's a motion to call the question, and there's a second. All those in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Any against?
No.
The motion succeeds. So now we're going to have a vote on the ordinance itself to be placed on the debate agenda. All those in favor of the motion to place on the debate agenda?
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes. Madam Clerk?
Ordinances for committee consideration include 2014-439, an ordinance providing for and authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds, Series 2015 of the City of Springfield, Sangamon County, Illinois, in an amount not to exceed $58 million for the purpose of financing infrastructure improvements within the city.
Move to debate.
Second.
There's a motion for debate in a second. Any discussion? Alderman Edwards?
I just had one question. I thought when we first started this, and we added the 1% sales tax to help pay for the infrastructure, I thought we talked about 30 and 30 and 30, and this is above that dollar amount. Can you explain that, why we're...
Yes, sir, I can. If you'll recall, we did the exact same thing last year. We did the ordinance that authorized the mayor to decide to sell the entire amount of the bonds, and the reason we did that, it was a safeguard in case some information came to light that, say, interest rates were going to go up appreciably in the future, or the Fed was going to take some other action that may end up costing the city more should we wait on doing the issuance. Right now, today, the plan is to do what we did last year, to do around $30 million. But we simply mimicked what was done a year ago, just in case.
Oh, okay.
Follow-up to that question. Last year, in the ordinance, the approving ordinance, we had the language gave a cap on the amount of transactional costs for the issuance of the bonds. The cap was $650,000. We had language in the ordinance that says the expenses will not exceed $650,000. This time, the wording is that the council approves whatever expenses pertain to the issuance. And so, would you entertain a motion to put a cap on the expenses for the issuance and break down what you expect the expenses to be and where they go?
Certainly, Alderman. We expect the expenses to be less this time because a lot of the upfront costs were there and higher since we hadn't done an issuance in so long. Now we're simply mimicking what we did a year ago. So certainly if you want to put that cap on there, we would have no objection.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes. To place on the debate.
2014-440 is a resolution authorizing the City of Springfield to transfer its 2014 private activity bond cap in the amount of $11,122,220 to the City of Aurora for issuing during calendar year 2014 in connection with the Assist 2014 bonds.
Move to consent.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for consent. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes.
2014-441 is an ordinance authorizing execution of Addendum A to a redevelopment agreement with Jefferson Crossing LLC to extend the completion date of the project to December 31, 2016.
Motion for consent.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for consent. Any discussion?
Just want to know that I'll be voting present on this due to a conflict.
So noted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes.
2014-442 is an ordinance ratifying and adopting the health plan benefits as approved by the Joint Labor Management Healthcare Committee for employees covered by collective bargaining agreements.
Move to debate.
Second.
Motion and a second for debate. Any discussion? I'm just going to make a comment. This is really for Mayor Houston and the mayoral candidates. I think it would be really helpful in the future to do some comparison analysis as to how our health care benefits compare to the private sector, how the city health care benefits, deductibles, co-pays, and so forth compared to the private sector. That'll take, I imagine, some kind of a consulting contract to get that going, but I just want to make that comment. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes.
2014-443 is an ordinance ratifying and adopting the health plan benefits for non-union employees and retirees receiving health care plan benefits and establishing the premiums for all non-union employees and retirees participating in the city's health care plan benefits for fiscal year 2015-2016.
Move to debate.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for debate. Any discussion?
Question. I don't know, whoever from the city can answer this. Is this the same, making the same changes as the previous ordinance? In other words, are we making the same changes for the non-union as we're doing for the union employees
Yes, that is correct.
and the retirees?
Retirees are a whole different
Okay.
category. But the active employees, union and non-union, are experiencing the same increase.
Alderman Lesko?
Yeah, did we have an increase last year?
Very minor. Attached to your packet should have shown it was about 3%. I think a little over 3% last year. And our trend has been very, very low compared to industry. And we do have benchmark data already
I mean,
available.
this one seemed a little high, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, we actually had a decrease in premiums in fiscal year 12, which was put in place in 2011, about 14%. And then each year since that, it's been hovering around 3%. So again, compared to other external entities, we've been very fortunate.
Thank you.
Director, if you have benchmark data, could you provide it to our
I sure could.
council coordinator for distribution?
And I have some for our peer cities as well.
Thank you.
Suffice it to say, we are head and shoulders above.
That's good to hear. Alderman Cannon?
Yeah, just before you leave, you said the last increase was 3% for the city employees?
It's in your packet. There's a trend. Here, I can look it up for you really quick.
All right, well, if the history's in there, I'll just review that.
Yeah, 3% for employees and just 1% for retirees last year.
Is this every year, is this last year? I mean, does this go up, change every year?
It is considered and can actually be changed or recommended to you for change quarterly, but we typically bring it forth via ordinance just once a year.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion to place on debate?
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes.
2014-444 is an ordinance authorizing payment to Michael Benz, an Office of Public Utility employee, for settlement of a workers' compensation claim for number 14WC283.
Move to consent.
Second.
Motion is second to place on consent. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes.
2014-445 is an ordinance authorizing the execution of a letter offer for extension, approving a one-year contract extension, and authorizing additional funding in an amount not to exceed $208,500 under contract UW 131056 with Chimera Water Solutions Incorporated for purchase of ferric sulfate for a total amount payable of $625,500 for the Office of Public Utilities.
Move to consent. Second.
Motion is second for consent. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes.
2014-446 is an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement with Springfield Township for installation of water main on Ridgewood Avenue for the Office of Public Utilities.
Second.
So motion is second for consent. Any discussion? I'm just going to make a comment on this one. The discussion, we're going to extend our water into roughly 20 homes, but we're not going to require or seek annexation. And the discussion in the fact sheet says, well, because if we annex, although we might pick up some real estate taxes, the real estate taxes will not be sufficient to meet our costs of infrastructure improvements down the road. But we just need to be mindful that when we annex property, we don't only just get real estate taxes. We increase the population of Springfield, and when we increase the population of Springfield, we get per capita amounts from the state of Illinois for income tax, for use tax, and for motor fuel tax. And roughly that amount is about $150 per person. So if there's 50 people that we'd annex here, That'd be roughly $7,500 a year in increased transfer payments from the state of Illinois. So that's just a factor that needs to be taken into consideration when we consider annexation. There's more benefit than just the real estate taxes. On the motion to place on consent, all those in favor? Aye. Any against? The motion passes.
2014-447 is an ordinance approving a telecommunications contract service agreement with Hospital Sisters Health System for 3051 Hollis Drive for the Office of Public Utilities.
Consent.
Second.
There's a motion, a second for consent. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes.
2014-448 is an ordinance approving the location and sketch map of the redivision of Lot 2 of Wabash Oaks Minor Subdivision, Plat 2 for the Office of Public Works.
With consent.
Second.
We've also tendered an amendment, staff. This plat is requesting a variance, and the ordinance that was originally tendered did not have a reference to that. If somebody would be willing to make that motion.
As amended.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for proposed amendment number 1. Any discussion on proposed amendment number 1? All those in favor of amendment number 1?
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes. Just a comment, this plat re-subdivision is to accommodate Chick-fil-A, which will be located directly east of Longhorn Steakhouse along Wabash at White Oaks Mall. Just a point of information. All those in favor of the placing on the consent agenda?
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes.
2014-449 is an ordinance approving the location and sketch map of the redivision of Lot 6 of Pleasant Park Subdivision, First Edition, for the Office of Public Works.
Move to consent with the proposed amendment number 1.
Second.
So there's an amendment for this ordinance as well?
Correct, and it's exactly the same as before. There was a variation requested with this plat, and that was omitted from the original draft of the ordinance.
So we'll vote on the amendment number 1. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? The amendment passes. Any discussion on the ordinance itself? All those in favor of placing on the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes.
2014-450 is an ordinance authorizing execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the Sangamon County, Illinois, regarding the Springfield-Sangamon County Enterprise Zone.
Second.
Motion to accept. Is there another amendment here?
Yes, there is.
Motion to accept amendment number 1.
Second.
And the amendment is actually a substitution of the entire ordinance. And down on the bottom, if you see it references the date on the footer of 12-09-14.
Point of order, then, if it's a substitution, do we call it an amendment?
That's a good question. I mean, it's really 6 1/2 dozen of the other, to use the legal term. So it's amending it by substituting an entire new draft.
So we'll entertain a motion to ignore the originally introduced ordinance, and we'll go to the rewritten ordinance, number the same number, 2014-450. Is there a motion to place it on?
There was an amendment on the floor, Alderman Tylen made and Alderman Job seconded.
We can go either way. So, which one has more legal standing, Tom?
So long as it's clear of record, it doesn't matter. The amendment is it's amending it by substitution. So that's still on the floor unless it's withdrawn.
Mr. Chairman, it's your choice. If you'd like us to withdraw and go with the other motion, I will.
Okay, there's a rewritten ordinance dated by our city attorney, dated 12-9-14. And first, do you withdraw your motion?
I will withdraw.
So what we're voting on now is, what we have before us is a rewritten ordinance, same number, 2014-450. It's dated 12-9/14 by Attorney Greenberg.
Can I ask a question, Chairman? Just what were the changes between this one?
There were numerous changes. We were negotiating this with Sangamon County. Most of them are essentially just trying to make it a better document, less confusing. The provisions of the enterprise zone pertaining to the city of city of Springfield, we are offering the exact same incentives as we did for the current enterprise zone, but that one will expire at the end of 2015, and we are therefore having to go through the process of applying for a new enterprise zone. We are applying to Department of Commerce and Community Affairs to seek approval for a new enterprise zone. The big change from what we were doing in the past is that we are doing this jointly with Sangamon County. So we need to adopt both an intergovernmental agreement and an ordinance regarding our own enterprise zone.
So this is like the first step in creating a new enterprise zone that crosses city and county lines.
That's correct.
And will this new enterprise zone not go into effect till the old one expires in 2015?
Well, it depending on the state of Illinois, it may not go into effect at all. We have to receive permission from the state, and the deadline for applying is December 31st. So the county board is looking at this draft as we speak. And because also the county board was looking and tweaking some of the language, we needed to have an amendment because we have the identical language.
If the state of Illinois approves, then this would kick in when the current enterprise zone expires. Is that?
Yes, I believe it would be January 1st of 2016.
And does it incorporate the old enterprise zone that we had in the city of Springfield?
Yes.
And then it latches on the parts in the county?
Correct.
It'll be the same.
Oh, thanks.
So we need a motion to place this on either the consent or the debate.
Motion for consent.
Second.
Any further
Have
discussion?
we already done that? Yeah, there was already a motion on the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay.
I apologize. I thought we removed and didn't say it. I'm sorry.
No, that was the amendment that was withdrawn.
All right, so all those in favor of...
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes for
20
consent agenda.
2014-451 is an ordinance establishing the Springfield-Sangamon County Enterprise Zone. Move to consent.
Second.
And again, we have a substitution in its entirety of the ordinance for the reasons given just now. We wanted to try to make sure that Sangamon County and the city of Springfield have the same language. And so we were asking that the initial ordinance draft be removed and that be substituted with the draft which has down at the bottom final 12/09-14.
Motion to adopt the new draft.
Second.
Motion to adopt the new draft. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? And now discussion on the new draft, and we'll take a motion. Any
There's a motion on the
discussion?
floor for consent.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor for consent. Any further discussion on this enterprise zone ordinance? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes.
2014-452 is an ordinance appointing Jim McDonough to the office of Alderman for Ward 10.
Move for debate.
To debate.
Second.
Which are you seconding?
The debate.
Okay. Alderman Edwards?
Yeah, I hope this passes, but just to put everybody on notice, I intend, or somebody can besides me, intend to pull this out very first thing when the meeting starts, so we can stop having sworn in, and then he can participate in the meeting. He's been listening to the debate. He understands the debate. So I would like to, I'll do it, or somebody can do it so that we can pull it out of order. I don't want it to be a surprise. That's why I'm saying it now, so everybody knows the intent, is so he can be an active member.
I'll be glad to do that with you, Alderman Edwards.
Yeah, Mr. Jim McDonough, could you come forward and just introduce yourself and say something about your life here in Springfield, and if you wish to take any questions, be willing.
Thank you, Alderman. My name is Jim McDonough. I've talked to most of you over the last couple of weeks, but I'm certainly thrilled to be in this kind of a position. Not in this kind of a position right now, but I do want to say thank you to a few of the folks, though. I want to say thank you first and foremost to Tim Griffin, actually, for, if his decision was different, there wouldn't be a vacancy in Ward 10, and I appreciate that, and those are big shoes to fill, and he's a good model for against which I'm going to measure what I do in the future going forward. I also want to thank the mayor for his recommendation. I think it was, I am humbled and I am grateful for his recommendation. I truly appreciate that. And I also want to thank the members of the City Council, because I came here last week unsure as to how the process was going to work, and you've all made me feel very comfortable and right at home, so I greatly appreciate it. As far as my background is concerned, I've been in Springfield for over 40 years, 42 years. Most all of those years, about half or more, I've lived in what is now called Ward 10, different neighborhoods throughout our city. I'm the father of two girls, one L.A. actress and another one in Denver, another gal in Denver who runs meetings, and she would want to take copious notes sitting here through these meetings, I'm sure. But anyway, I'm very, very proud to be able to participate in any way I can to help the folks. And as I mentioned, you know, Tim Griffin's, he has some very big shoes to fill, and I look forward to trying to meet the standard that he set in our neighborhood in Ward 10. And I will promise this, I will pledge to the members of the residents of Ward 10 that I will do my best to be at all times accessible, certainly accountable for anything that I do in this role, and reliable in the sense that I'll be predictable for the folks in Ward 10. So with that, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McDonough. Any questions for Jim McDonough?
Just, everybody knows you for your leadership and the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which was a great accomplishment that you put together, but I also learned you have quite an extensive financial background. Isn't that correct?
Well, I've done, in addition to some work in economic development, I've also been state Medicaid director, where we had a $2.2 billion budget. Now that budget, by the way, is somewhere over 26 billion, I'm sorry. But at the time, it certainly was the biggest single piece other than education in the state budget. We had 1,650 employees under my area. I also had served as chief deputy director in Secretary of State offices, various departments there, where we also had budget responsibility too. But the most difficult job had always been the St. Patrick's Day Parade, trying to figure out if we're going to have enough money to pay the schools to be able to participate in it.
Well, I think your financial expertise will come in very useful as we put together the budget over the coming months. So,
thank you all.
In anticipation of a positive vote, welcome to the City Council.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for accepting the nomination.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
We need to vote on that.
All those in favor of the ordinance placed on the debate agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes.
2014-453 is an ordinance authorizing execution of Addendum B to a redevelopment agreement with the Children's Museum Foundation Corporation to extend the completion date of the project to January 31, 2016.
Move for consent.
Second.
Motion and a second for consent. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? The motion passes. This completes the portion of the agenda covering the ordinances for review. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Cameron?
I make a request to, like Alderman Turner, but Alderman Jobe, with regard to those amendments that you will be presenting on the Inspector General ordinance, if possible, if you could, get them to the Alderman prior to the meeting, email them, that would be appreciated.
I will do.
Okay, thanks. And the other thing is, at the beginning of the meeting, we talked about this grant to DSI for the promotion of the holiday walks, and in the interim, I found out that the holiday walks are actually taking place, the remaining ones, tomorrow, Wednesday, December 10th, and then also on the following Wednesday, December 17th. And during these holiday walks, all the stores downtown are open until 8 p.m., and plus the Santa House on the south side of the old Capitol Mall is open, and Santa is there. And also on Saturdays from 11 to 3, the Santa House is open. So, I mean, we got a great resource downtown, a lot of great merchants, and so it's a great place to do some of your Christmas shopping over the next few weeks, and especially tomorrow and next Wednesday evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Cameron. Any new business items? Just one real briefly. This is to City Water, Light and Power. Thank you for taking care of some light pole outages. There was 10 light poles out on Warson for a couple of weeks, and it was complicated work to get it done. And that's a street without sidewalks, and it's a street that is a passageway to other places like some schools and a church. So thank you for getting that taken care of. But speaking of that, Saturday night after the Christmas parade, I came over to the Capitol building on Capitol Street, and I noticed that from Capitol Street along 2nd Street all the way up to Edwards, going south, there were about 10 light poles right down the center of the state government area on 2nd Street, and they were out as of last night also, so I didn't go by there tonight, but it was very dark, so just a request for someone to look into that. Any other new
If I could add,
new business? Alderman Simpson.
Thank you. The phone number to get that fixed and reported is 789-2171.
That's a good help, Alderman Simpson.
And they're there all the time. So, you know, a lot of times I'm driving down the street and I'll call and let them know where an outage is because they may not know.
Very good. Any other new business? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Or citizen requests, excuse me. Are there any citizen requests? Motion to adjourn? So moved. Second. All those in favor? Aye. So.